Back then, okay, all the grocery stores, Victor was certainly kind of bad. There was hardly any employment. There was no grocery stores at all at Victor. So I got the big brainy idea. I was working at the school to open up the KC Market, and we opened up a little store. And the people was good to us. We were around it about 4 years, I think. And my wife ran the store. I worked at school. And we let people charge groceries. We still got a lot of charges on books. We let them charge, which doesn't matter. You know, we try to help everybody out. But we ran it. There was no store at all. And then after we opened the grocery store up, Bumgardner's opened up a produce store. Zeke's place started selling milk and eggs, kind of in competition to us. And then some people by the name of Barbara Dupe, they bought what we call Harshberger's store. And I think after Harshberger sold that store, Betty Walker and Jack bought it, and they ran it for quite a while. And then I think June Fullrod got in there. She had it for a while. We never could keep penny candy, and I come to find out my kids was taking that penny candy to school and giving every kid in school candy, which was all right. And then meanwhile, I was invested in properties myself, and I owned properties up by the Molly Kathleen mine and around, and we had our own drilling rig at one time called Barnett Roy Drilling. And I bought, and we mined it up or drilled until I sold it out to Shannon Murphy, which was Murphy Mining, which went bankrupt since then or whatever. And I sold out eventually, you know, and I still got some holdings there in Cripple Creek and quite a few in Victor. But anyway, the mining, it gets in your blood. And the tunnels I've been in, that list there on tunnels, the Prince Albert, and I got to go in these and take samples, and got to open them up and get a backhoe there and let them air out. But Prince Albert Tunnel, and then I've been in the Columbine Tunnel, which goes out underneath to where the leach pad is in Cripple Creek now, or the big mines got. But you can go in jet service and go down in the back end and go down and hit that tunnel level. But then there was a Moose Tunnel up by the Crescent. I was in it. I was in the Victor Tunnel that hooks up on the 400 or 500 foot level of the Ajax. And then on over Cripple Creek area, there are Fort Wilcox tunnels on Mineral Hill. We opened it up and was in it, and then we opened up the Merchants Tunnel, which is down in Spring Creek there, and there's quite a story goes with it. There was a kid by the name of Larry Conley. He's passed away now, but Norby Larson and Norby is still alive. We was driving down in there, and we seen Larry run in this tunnel. He knew he was going to go in, and we had our helmets and our safety lamps and everything. Well, Larry got back in there, and he was hiding behind the timbers, and he had a cigarette lighter, and he was going to try to scare us. We seen him go in. But anyway, we get back there, and we heard the darnest commotion you ever heard. He'd went back in there, and he'd fell down the winds. He didn't know it was there. He fell 22 feet and hit water, and he can't swim anyway. So he's screaming, and we get back there, and I would have been too. And we get back there, and at one point he asked Norby Larson to get down in there with him, because, you know, I mean, this guy's. So I run back out of the tunnel, and Lake Sutton was working outdoors, and Lake wouldn't go underground. And I run out and I tried to get a rope, and I had just a short piece of a one because I had another rope I just lent a guy the day or two before. Well, that water's cold. This is the middle of winter, and I knew Larry couldn't last long. So I run back in there, and we lower the rope down, but it's too short to reach him. Well, you're looking at an hour's time to go to Cripple Creek to get a rope or help or a ladder or whatever. So Norby Larson had his coveralls on. He had Carhartts. And Butch Granger always said, I'm a quick thinker. He said, if the ship's sinking, I want Carl on it, because he'll keep that ship afloat. But anyway, that's just him. Darby took his cover holes off, and we took the pant leg and we tied a square knot into that. And Larry reached up and he could just barely get it wrapped around his wrist. And then he walked himself up out of there. And we all went home pretty shook up over that. But yeah. But that was the little hole, or the Merchant's Tunnel. And then there's several tunnels up on Tenderfoot. There's the Pennsylvania Tunnel, the Sandy Crystal Tunnel, the Tenderfoot Tunnel. Them's all up there on top of Tenderfoot that, you know, we got to open up and go in. And on the one tunnel we opened it up, Charlie Carlton, he was a mining engineer. These is in later years, but he wanted to go in and look that tunnel over. So we get in the tunnel and we start back there, and it's double rail. And the reason they put double rail in, it was going to ship that whole mountain, and they wanted train to be able to go past each other. So we get back in there, and I look on the wall, and there's a little raise that goes up about 12-15 feet, and on the side of the wall there's a skeleton with crossbows on it, and it says gas, and it's got an arrow pointing to there. So we got our safety lamps and we're looking, and we're all right, you know, no gas today. And we step about from here to that TV about 5-6 feet away, and that wick on that lamp went and then went out. Well, gas. So and what the gas is, it's a lack of oxygen efficiency is what it is. It's carbon dioxide. And when the barometer's down, up there in the district, when the barometer's down, the gas oozes out of these cracks and veins where this gold was deposited and way back. So anyway, I stepped out there about 5 feet, and Charlie Carlton, he had his other lamp, he got it lit. It was burning fine. So we walked back over there and hold that lamp over, and there was just gas in that one little area. But it'll kill you. It's just like walking in and no oxygen. So anyway, that was quite an experience on that tunnel. But we made several rescues when I was head of the search and rescue up there. Men would crawl down in mine shafts and die. They'd get gassed. Joe Dandy was one of the first ones. And this Army sergeant out of Carson went down on the 1200 level, and he didn't come out of there. So they called us and alerted, and it was a gassy day. And anytime there's a southwest winds and there's clouds on the Sandy Crystal Range looking out of Cripple Creek, you can almost count on gas. Now the Molly's pretty gassy, but they keep it controlled with air and whatever, you know, the best they can. And so anyway, we went down there. There was Jack Lorenz, Earl Beals, and myself. We went down the manway in the Joe Dandy, 1,200 feet, and Jake Baker come out, and he had the wrecker, and he put I think 1,500 feet of real small cable on that winch, and he lowered it clear down into the bottom. And the sky was there, and so we went down in there and we found him. And the gas was kind of bad, but our lamp would still stay burning. So actually, when we come back up out of the manway, it was 1,200 feet, walk clear back up out of there. And then when everybody was gone, they hoisted that guy out of there. We had the cable tied around his feet, so he was upside down, but they hoisted him out of there. And then we had a guy fall down the Dolly Varden mine, and it was a search and rescue. We was volunteer, and like I say, we had some of the best guys around. The power company crew was there, and the fire department guys. And the Dolly Varden, it was a cloudy day, and this guy come and got a hold of us, and he says his friend climbed down in there and he never came out. Well, the Dolly Varden was real gassy, and that's over there in Anaconda Gulch. So we get there and we're trying to figure out, and the mine inspector was up there, Joe Keating, and he wouldn't let us do much. And he says, nobody's going down in there because the gas was still kind of bad. So I went and took a rear view mirror off my pickup, and the sun would come out every little bit. So I shined it down that shaft, and you could see the man laying down there about 80 feet, and his head was out in the shaft part. He was still in part way in the manway, but he's dead. So we're waiting, trying to figure out, we don't know how many days the gas is going to be bad, but we wanted to get this rescue over with. So the news media was up there and everything, and I told old Joe Keating, I says, the mine inspector, I says, we can get him out of there and we don't have to go down in there, because he wouldn't let us go down in there. But I said, it's going to kind of be cruel, but we can't have no news media around. And he says, well, what do you got in mind? I said, we're going to lower a rope down in there. We're using that light. We'll swing it over by him, just like you rope a calf. And he was 90 feet down, and we'll hook him on the head. And that's how we pulled him out of there. So rather than endanger other people's lives, you know. And then the last go around was the guy in Candaconda Gulch. He went up there and was looking around, and there was actually no fence. That fence was there, but it was down, and this kid got too close, and that Mary McKinney shaft burned out way back, I think in the 20s sometime. It burned out, and he fell 1,200 and some feet, and he was down in there. Well, we built a platform. The power company guys come over. There was Barry Petrie. He didn't work for the power company, but he had a welder. But Bob Beach and Art Davidson, Tom Slane, myself, I think Gary Shoemaker, the sheriff, was there. And Larry Connolly did volunteer to get in a capsule, go down, and mine inspector said, no, there's already one guy dead, but we don't know if he's down there for sure. So the power company come over, and he had a big winch on their deal, and we put cable on, and Connie Larson, she was a coroner then, and we put a camera on this cable in the center of the shaft, and the power company this winch works real slow, and so we mounted this camera with lights and set it down the middle of the shaft, and we set it down there, and it went down all the way, and finally we could tell it got to the bottom. We could hear a clunk. So then we started raising it up real slow, and as he was raising it up, the camera's spinning, and you could see the body laying there, and the guy was already bloated. You could see his belt, but we couldn't get him out. Well, Connie wouldn't pronounce him dead because she was a coroner, and she says, unless I physically see him, I see what you got on the screen, but I can't pronounce him dead. And bless her heart, she, you know, it was all in tears. It kind of shakes you up. So that guy's name was Wayne Teese, and so what happened later, they came and bulldozed a lot of rock in there on top of him, and I think they sealed the top of that shaft, and it's under a big leach pad today. But talk about being buried the deepest, he's buried 1,200 feet underground. So but that was probably one of the last search and rescues we was on where we had to deal with a mine accident, you know. Oh, and by the way, Richard Myers, and we did quite a bit of research, he was my uncle. In Teller County, a lot of boys went to the Army and services, but we did a lot of checking, and he was one of the highest decorated soldiers in Teller County in World War II. He had 4 Bronze Stars, and they was awarded to him in Victor, Colorado in 1948. But he served under Patton back then, and but there was a lot of good boys up home and never got to come home alive. You know, the Beebe boys, one of the Gaffney boys, George Lorenz Jr., They all lost their lives during the war, you know, several others. It's back early in the 60s, and we decided we needed to do something. And so there was Butch Granger and Isaiah Davidson and Tish Allen and Eleanor and Isaiah Davidson and myself. And we met and we said, well, let's start a little deal and we'll call it Gold Rush Days. Now, before then, they had a lot of celebrations, but they was like on Labor Day or the 4th of July. Victor did, and way back there was a lot of celebrations. I moved down here 28 years ago. I didn't want to move. I love Victor. Victor was my heart and soul, and we lived up there, but Carolyn's dad was pretty sick at the time, and we knew the lower altitude would be better, you know, and I'd made a little money in my lifetime. I did well. The good Lord blessed me, and I did well. So we moved down here, and I bought this place here, and we moved down her to take care of her dad, and we did until he passed away. And then my wife passed away here 13 years ago. In fact, September the 11th, she'll be gone 13 years. But meanwhile, we moved to Skagway. She wanted a ranch, and I did too. And so I had to make a choice between building a place out there or here. Well, I'd already bought the property out there and has the water on it, nice little place. And I bought it and I paid $400 an acre. And everybody said, oh, you got to be crazy. A lot of them ranchers, this stuff's only worth $200 an acre. I said, well, I wanted it. There's water on the place, and a guy by the name of Balky Trust owned it. And he'd owned it since 1917. So anyway, I bought this house here, and it took most of our money, but I had enough left to buy an old trailer house at the time, and I took it up there, and then of course later on we added on to it, and I just a few years ago I built another little cabin there, but it's all out there yet, but I run cattle there yet. And we got some good neighbors help us, you know. Carlton Brown married Blenda Beach. He's still a cowboy and been all his life. And Tom Slane and Reed Granger, Rick Rice, all them guys pitch in and help, you know, when we gather cows and move them and stuff like that. And I go up there. I usually spend all summer up there. I haven't left Victor yet. Well, I've left Victor, but I'm still there. But I come down here and we winter down here, you know. It's kind of nicer in the winter. Summers are too hot. But anyway, I basically in the cattle business just a little bit yet, and I still am. And mining property, and that's basically what I did, and sold most of it out. It's gone now, but I did a lot of hunting in my lifetime. I love hunting deer and elk and mountain lions. I run a trap line when I was a kid. I'd set traps and catch bobcats, and we did anything to try to make a living, you know. And I got 4 wonderful girls, and they got wonderful families, and they're about all retired or just about. And Sheila, she's in Houston, Texas. She's not here, but she's as high in the government as you can get. And she's supposed to retire a year or two ago, and she won't. They gave her a lot more money to stay on another year or two, but hopefully they'll get back out this way and get settled, you know. I got into Indian arrowhead collection because I think I told you my dad denied we was ever in Indian, and so for some reason, Gary Shoemaker, the sheriff, he just passed away here about a month or so ago, and he used to collect Indian arrowheads. And by the way, I got them, and Gary donated that arrowhead collection. It was all found in Teller County to the Heritage Center in Cripple Creek. He got me started, and so I've been gathering arrowheads up and collections, and here they're chasing Indian pictures, and I've got my place up home at the ranch kind of decorated with it. Just kind of like it, you know, so.